4.6 billion years ago, in this area of the universe, gas clouds started to collect and a star was born. So these gases and dust started collecting, and the gravitational pull just kept pulling them tighter and tighter and tighter. The gravitation started to spin, and eventually this massive amount of heat and energy collapsed, and it caused fusion, and that was the birth of our sun. Well, this is very important to us, right? The sun, this fusion reaction this gas cloud is mainly made up of hydrogen, 4 hydrogens fused into helium. And the resulting helium just has a little less mass than the hydrogen, and that was ejected as energy, and it continues on today. This energy is extremely important to us here on Earth. It is what we feel as the heat, the infrared heat. It's the damaging rays that we feel from the UV light. It's the light that we see. It is what heats the Earth and keeps it the temperature that we need so we can live. And it is also the energy for photosynthesis for all of the plants that we grow here on the Earth. Vitally, vitally important and critical to life here on Earth. But if you look at the universe, our star is not unique. Not by a long shot, not by a long shot. It's just amazing to me as we've got new technology, what we now know about the universe. If you think about the history of science and what we first thought was the Earth was the center of the universe. And if you looked up, that kind of made sense. You see the stars moving around and it looks like we're the center. And then they developed some telescopes, and pretty soon they learned, no, that's not the case. Maybe we rotate around the sun. The sun must be the center of the universe. Well, now we know, in fact, that this universe is massive. Our sun, our star, is just one in 4 billion with a B, I think it is, in our galaxy, right? Just our Milky Way galaxy, though. So that's that picture you see a lot of the galaxy, the flat disk. We're just 1 in 4 billion in that galaxy. And that's when you look up at the sky and you see the stars of the Milky Way. That's mostly what you see. And you don't see all of them, you just see some of them. Our galaxy is just 1 in 2 trillion with a T, galaxies in the universe that they can see now. 2 trillion galaxies, each of those with likely 400 billion stars. Now, nobody can get their arms around, right? Nobody can think that way to understand what that means. But it's amazing how we've had to change our thinking over time and how we've learned more and more and more. Another way that science is learning more is around quantum physics. So this is the quantum mechanics is the science of the very, very small. What we used to know of as the atom, we learned in school about the atom and the nucleus and the protons and neutrons and then the electrons that spin around that. That's what we thought of as small when we were in school. Now they know there are much, much smaller pieces and particles in the universe. And they have strange names, and they're called quarks and other things, and they act very strangely. In fact, one of them is called strange. And they're just odd particles that don't seem to obey the laws that we got used to knowing. So Newton's laws of gravity were around the late 1600s, and for centuries, that was pretty much that dominated the way we thought about the motions and how things moved, because we were looking at the very large. But then in the 1900s, with Einstein and with Schrödinger, people started looking at the very small, and they said, well, these things don't obey those laws. And they didn't even obey the laws of relativity of Einstein. And that really bothered him. And it was really difficult for him to understand that. And they acted very strange. They would come in and out of existence. These particles would annihilate each other. There's also particles we now know that are what they call entangled. So you got a particle here, like an electron or a photon, and a particle here, and somehow they're linked, and they act exactly the same. But they could be this far apart, or they could be light years apart, and they still do that. Einstein was so bothered by this that he worked on this for decades because it didn't match up with his theory of relativity. It was a real struggle for him. And then another one that was strange that Schrödinger and others were working on was this idea that these particles, they act like particles. So I think about that like you're in a heavy rainstorm and the rain's coming at you and beating on you. You feel these particles hitting you, these raindrops. But they also found that these particles act like waves, like if you're in an ocean and the waves hitting you. And this duality is really odd behavior because they do them at the same time, depending on how you're observing that particle. So these things were really bothersome to scientists, and so they said, well, what do we do with this? We don't even understand that. But they're smart people, and they kept working on it, and they came up with this idea of quantum computers. It's a new style of computer that is being developed and being used quite frequently right now. But it acts differently than the computers that we grew up with. The computers we grew up with were the ones that use bits and ones and zeros, and you string a few of those together in a string, and you can represent a character or a number, or perhaps one of the lights on one of these individual pieces of the screen. And it would do that, but it would do it very fast. It looks like it's happening up there instantly, but it's doing each one of those pixels one at a time, doing it very fast. A quantum computer does this differently. A quantum computer uses qubits, which have ones and zeros, but they can represent everything in between a 1 and 0. So it gives an infinite possibility of computation, incredible computation ability to solve problems much, much faster, certain problems much, much faster. So just to give you a reference, what I've heard is that a quantum computer, for instance, can solve a problem in 3 to 4 seconds that might take a standard supercomputer hundreds of thousands of years to solve. Just incredible. So I certainly don't understand how that works at all. But the way that it was described to me, that made a little sense. You take a raindrop and you drop it into a pond and you watch the wave. And that's how a standard computer works. And then it drops another one, and it just keeps doing it over and over and over. A quantum computer does it much differently. It takes a very complex problem. That's the one that maybe has hundreds of thousands of variables. Think about genetics, medicine, the biology of the soil, millions of organisms in the soil that all interact together. Weather, try to predict weather and all of the variables that you have with weather. And what it does is it takes all of those variables and it drops them all into the pond all at once. And then it watches the waves and how they intersect. And sometimes they cancel each other out, and sometimes they enhance each other, and it looks at that whole pattern of those droplets. A much different way of calculating and doing those kinds of calculations. So you're probably saying now, I'm at a co-op meeting. Why are we talking science? Dan's lost it, right? And I understand that, but there's 2 reasons why. First of all, a lot of the things that are coming at us and changing and we're going to have to react to are going to be things like this. Science-based, technology-based. And we're going to have to figure out how to work with that and how to deal with that and learn about that. The second one, and it's the one I think is important, is scientists. People like Einstein and Schrödinger. These are fact-based people, science-based people, data-driven people. And if you look at the history of science, they've continued to have to change the way they think. And I think, well, that's very instructive to us as co-op leaders as we look at the world that's changing in front of us. And I think, well, how do they do that? I think what they do is they They keep their heads up. They keep their eyes open, and they look at what's in front of them. They already know what's behind them. They know the history, but they have to deal with what's in front of them. What did we learn new today, and how do we deal with that? That's fascinating to me. We're constantly having to learn. And, technology is just one of the many things that we as leaders in the cooperative world have to worry about. We got markets and trade and people and all of those other things. All of those are important, but we have to keep our heads up and our eyes open, looking at that change, navigating through it so we can stay resilient. We've done that in our history as a co-op, right? The co-ops represented in here, 70, 80, 90 years old, most of them are. And yet they've been resilient through this whole time. And what we know yesterday or 100 years ago is not what we know today. So we're going to have to continue to navigate through that, steer through those changes to make sure that we're resilient and we have a purpose and we continue to focus on our purpose. At CHS, our purpose is creating connections that empower agriculture. That is it's our guiding light. It's our North Star. It's what we focus on. And because we're connected to this entire system, this enormous cooperative system, and we are a global company, that gives us power. And it takes a co-op to do that. It does. It takes a co-op. Many of you know that I've decided to retire. I've told the board of directors that I'm going to retire at the end of my term. 2026 is the end of my term. And I've also told the board that to facilitate transition, that I'm not going to continue to seek re-election for board chair. This difficult decision for me. It's difficult for me, but I think it's the right decision for CHS, and it's the right decision for our cooperative. I believe very strongly in this value of the co-op system in CHS. We're very fortunate in the way we use the cooperative model in agriculture. No other system is like it, business model, where our customers are also our owners. And that if we have success and we provide value, we return that back to them. They're our customer and our owner, perfectly aligned. It's a great system. And I will continue to advocate for it. I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of CHS. But I also believe in the power of new ideas, fresh ideas. David Kaiser and I joined the board in 2006, right, David? And next year will be our 20th year. My term happens to end next year. And I think it's time for someone else that'll bring fresh new ideas, things that I never thought of, and take us to new places. I'm very excited about that and what we'll see. I'm also very confident in our future at CHS. We have a great leadership team. We have a board that has great leadership, strong board. We've spent a lot of time on succession planning and development, and we have strong leaders on this board that are just going to keep walking, and you won't notice a difference. You're going to be very, very pleased with what you see. I'm also very excited about the decades in front of us. I can see some of the things that are coming at us shortly, and it's pretty exciting what we're seeing, some of the opportunities that we have at CHS. And then you get to feel confident if you sit down with the new leader group. We as a board get to do that, and if you want to feel confident about the future, you sit down with them. Sharp people, thinking about the future, thinking about how to grow their companies, how to grow their co-ops, how to make a stronger rural economy. Impressive people, impressive. And we need to continue to encourage them. So we're very proud of our new leaders that are coming up behind us. But we all need these leaders. And that's not just our job as a board, and that's just CHS's job. It's all of our jobs to find those people. If you see somebody that you think's a strong leader, a great leader, has some potential, talk to them, grab onto them. Say, hey, you ought to think about this. And if they say, I'm pretty busy. Just say, hey, let me tell you about my story. And tell them about your leadership journey. 'Cause I'm pretty sure there isn't anybody in this room that would give up this for anything. What an opportunity we've had by being involved with leadership at the cooperative system. So I would encourage you to continue to encourage that cooperative spirit in other leaders. While I'm optimistic about the future, I also want to make sure that we're realistic about 2025. 2025 was not the greatest year for agriculture. We had a lot of headwinds. We had difficulty with global trade and prices. We all saw it, and we all saw it in our farms, right? Difficulty. If you were, most farmers, I got these cattle guys, CJ and Don and that they're smiling. You see them in the hallway. They're smiling so much they got permanent wrinkles on their face. They're smiling so much, so they're having a good time. But the rest of us are struggling a little bit. No different for CHS. We've had some business units that did really well, some that were really struggling. Luckily, we're diversified, and we had $600 million of earnings. Just shy. And I think that's pretty good with the headwinds we had. This team executed, did a wonderful job providing great earnings and very strong headwinds. They did that by a lot of hard work, operating differently, operating better across the enterprise, looking for opportunities, coming to you as our owners differently, with a different mindset, looking at cash flows and risks, understanding that, so when we have these headwinds and we have these dips, we can make that a little higher. So excellent execution by our team, excellent execution. We're also going to pass back $120 million in cash to you as patronage dividends and equity redemptions. And when we do that this next spring, over a 5-year period, $2.6 billion, billion with a B, $1 billion that goes back to you, our owners, in cash that you can use in your farms, your operations, your co-ops, your businesses, and you can reinvest in the communities that you live in, that we live in. That's a wonderful system we have that we can do that. Building a stronger cooperative, building a stronger rural America. So thank you for your business and your support. Every year, I also talk about what's going on with the board and the Schurr initiatives, and I want to highlight, too, that we're walking hand in hand with management. And one is focusing on this global trade, both domestic and global trade around ag. And if you were in the sessions today, Olivia had a session and others about what's going on with global trade. And it's changing drastically, where products are grown, where they're moving and where they're trading to. And we're trying to make sure that we understand at CHS where we play. We're going to be playing the game. We don't want to be sitting on the sidelines. We don't want to be sitting at the bench. We're going to be a player in the game. So very important to us at CHS. So we've spent some time as a board. We've traveled to Australia, to Brazil, South America, the Black Sea, understanding the production that's happening, how they're growing, where their growth patterns are, and where they're shipping to, and trying to understand that change in trade flows. We've also looked at demographic shifts, population changes, and we traveled to Southeast Asia, and we talked to them about their growth and population. How are they going to feed their people? And how can we at CHS participate in that? This knowledge is stuff that we can bring back and work with management together to think about strategic guidance going forward. And that's not just for tomorrow or 5 years from now. We're thinking 10 years, 20 years ahead for our children's cooperative. And what do we need to do today that prepares us so we can be successful 10 years from now or 20 years from now? So that's very exciting. We're also trying, our second priority is to think about agility and innovation. How do we continue to think about change? And one of the ways is looking at technology. Some of you may have attended the AI session today, and look at how quickly that has changed. Last year at this meeting, I think we were talking about it in terms of what does AI stand for? What is generative AI? I don't even understand the term. And now today, we have, I would bet most of you using AI in every search engine that you have. A lot of you are using it for work, to write letters, to write contracts, maybe to design, self-help, all of those kinds of things that people use those for. Look how quickly that happened. In a matter of months, most of us have adopted this technology. Incredible speed of adoption, I think. Another way we're looking at innovative thinking is governance. Tomorrow, you're going to get a taste of our nominating committee, where you'll elect two of your peers to serve on our nominating committee. And a great step forward by this board. Tracy, a lot of work by the governance committee to put this together. Our board is fully supportive of this. It's a great step forward where this committee will assess and recommend a director for you to choose from as a candidate based on the competencies that this board has worked on over the past few years. All candidates, whether they're incumbents or whether new candidates, will go through this process. It's a great way, I think, to add rigor to this process and to build confidence in the system, help ensure that we have the best candidates. It'll also provide a leadership opportunity for those that are serving on the committee. And then lastly, we really hope that it will help identify those new leaders, find them, encourage them to think about a leadership journey here at CHS. This is a great step forward by CHS, and this will make CHS stronger. I wanted to take a little time here to say some thank yous, and I hope you indulge me a little. It'll take a little bit of time, but first of all, I wanted to thank the employees. We have thousands of employees all over the world. Each one of them is a piece in the puzzle of our plan of creating connections in power agriculture. Each one of them is vital to the success of that. And some of them are here today, some of them are watching online, and some of them aren't here, but I hope they find out that this group said thank you. Thank you for what you do for CHS. So if you would join me, please, in thanking them. I also want to highlight the leadership team. So you saw them today in action. You see them all the time talking. You know they're professionals, extreme professionals. This board of directors gets to watch them in action in the boardroom, and what a pleasure that is to see how they interact, how they challenge and help each other, and how they think across the enterprise for what's best for the enterprise. It's an opportunity that we have that I know you don't get to see, but what a wonderful thing that is for us to see. Jay has said that you need to surround yourself with great people, and he has done that. Nice job. Thank you. I also want to highlight Jay, and I think he's hiding backstage, but I want to say a special thanks to Jay. Jay has been a partner of mine for many years, and we work side by side together, and very special thank you to him. My first job, one of my first responsibilities as chair was to go to Jay and say, I want to talk to you about a new job. I want to talk to you about being the CEO. And we quickly got into the discussion of what's important. I told him our board wants to focus on making sure the culture is right in the company, and we had a few other requirements. And he said, I have some requirements too. And we worked on them, and we quickly aligned as a board and management team on focusing that we were going to have a purpose. And that was going to be our guiding light. And we have that with creating connections. But we were going to bound that with values. And we were going to say, we will do that as long as we stay within these values. that safety. We will be safe, or we will not do it. We will operate with integrity every day. We believe in the value of inclusion, that seeking out a broad thought is the way we'll get the best solutions. And then lastly, we will operate with cooperative spirit. We are cooperative. And then we talked about the tone at the top. And we said we will operate with absolute professionalism and unwavering integrity. And Jay has executed on that. Done a fabulous job, superb execution. I'm very grateful for what he's done, and he's a class act. So I just want to thank him, if you would join me. I also want to thank the board. If you could have the board please stand up. So this group, please stay standing. I know you don't want to, but please stay standing. This group I've had the pleasure of working with for many years. And what impresses me is they continue to strive to be better. This group continues to look for opportunities to improve their professionalism, improve their strategy thinking. They come to the meetings with passion, with energy, and I'm very proud of them. And it's been a pleasure for me to serve you. So on behalf of all of you, thank you. Would you please join me? So I would also be remiss if I didn't thank spouses and others that are helpful as we work very hard on what we do. Now that just doesn't go for this board of directors, and we have a lot of people that support us. Behind the scenes here, there's a whole bunch of people that are helping put on this annual meeting. What wonderful help. But regardless of what you do, whether you're passionate about something and reaching for something, when you do that, science says when the conservation of energy, you're going to leave something else go. And we leave pieces when we do that, don't we? When we reach and spend a lot of time at something. And often that falls on others to pick up those pieces. And it does. You know, my family's here, and it falls on people like that. Friends, family, a coworker. And I got to tell you a story. It's just a side note story. It's when I first took this role, there was a lot going on at CHS, and I was spending a lot of time doing that. Gone a lot, on the phone a lot, and I left a lot of pieces. And it just happened to be right through our planting season, very intense time for us in the planting season. And all those pieces fell on my family, and they picked them up and ran with that. Tough time for them. But I came home one day, and I drove in the drive from being at a meeting, and my wife was there, and she's if you know her, she's a very positive person, very energetic person, but I could see the tension on her face. And she should have. We had a lot of pressure on her. And I walked up, and I said, "Hi, how are you doing?" She said, "I'm good. I want an edger." And I didn't know what that meant. You know, what? You're probably thinking the same. I want an edger. She said, "I'm good, but I want an edger." And so I looked around, and I figured, well, there was a shovel there, and she was edging the driveway with a shovel, and she wanted an edger. I said, well, every once in a while I say some smart things, and I said, "Okay, let's go get an edger." And we went and got an edger. Just don't forget those people that support you, because sometimes when you're reaching for the stars or reaching for something that's important to you, you're standing on the shoulders of others. Thank them. Send them a note, send them a letter, buy them an edger, whatever you need to do. But don't forget to thank them. Lastly, in my thank yous, I want to thank all of you, our stakeholders. Whether you're an employee, whether you're a business partner, a bank, a member owner, however you are involved with CHS, we would not be without you. So we thank you for your support. Thank you for your engagement, your participation in our governance. However you choose to participate with you, it's vitally important, and I personally thank you very much for that. So thank you very much. So our cooperatives are 100 years old, 90 years old, and about that time they were sitting in, people like us, they were sitting in kitchens, they were in town halls, and they were thinking about how could we work together? Because I think if we work together, we could be stronger together. They were dreaming about how we could make a co-op, and how could we use that? But they couldn't imagine what we have become here today, could they? Look at the scale of what this cooperative system is. They just could not have imagined it. But we've continued to persevere through the highs and the lows, the challenges, the windfalls, all of that. And we will continue to persevere. These are exciting times for this system, exciting opportunities ahead of us. And I'm confident that if we use the power of this cooperative system and continue to support CHS, the possibilities are limitless. There's so many opportunities ahead of us. And as I speak to you for the last time as giving you the board report, I'd like to challenge you. I'd like to challenge you to think like those scientists that they revolutionized, they changed our way of thinking about the universe and matter and space and the way that we operate here today. But they had to change their thinking. So I'd ask you to stay curious. Don't settle for the status quo. Open yourself up to new ideas. Embrace new perspectives. Ask questions. Seek to understand. Keep your head up. Keep your eyes open. Why? Because this co-op system, it belongs to all of us. And we all need to do that. We are the leaders of the cooperatives we represent, and there's nobody else to do it. We have to do it. But if we work together with cooperative spirit, going through all of these challenges, we will be stronger. There is a universe of opportunities out there for us. When we work together, nothing stands in our way. That is the power of cooperation. It takes a co-op. It takes CHS. Thank you for your support.